Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I guess I've been doing it for about 7 years now. And I love doing Comic Cons because I feel like it's a cool way for people who are fans of different, film and TV shows, but also comics like I was, to get together and geek out over things that they're excited about. So I love doing them because every week it's a new thing, and I'm excited to go to Paraguay because I've never been there. So Um, recently, I've been revisiting the old X-Men animated series, and I really love the character of Morph. Morph was such
Okay.
an interesting character because I mean he was obviously like very much like some other shapeshifters in the MCU, but I
Yeah.
really love how he's portrayed in the 1990s X-Men because like Logan says, he's the only guy that could ever make him laugh. So I think Morph would be a really fun character, especially if I had to impersonate the people I was actually working with. Well, it's funny because when I officially got the I guess it was an audition if you want to call it that, but they just asked if I could do a Hugo Weaving impression, and I didn't know what to say because Hugo Weaving's done a million different voices for all the things he's
Yeah.
done. He's of course, and then they said, well, we're thinking like a German Hugo Weaving, and so I naturally assumed it was Red Skull, but even then they wouldn't tell me what the project was.
Mm.
So they sent me some voice match references, and of course it was from the Captain America, the First Avenger. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, I just finished season 7 or 8 of The Walking Dead, and I had flown back to LA. And I was in the taxi home, and my manager called me and was like, "Hey, you got the Hugo Weaving voice match." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. What is that? What is that for? What's that project?" She's like, "I don't know. They won't tell me." So it wasn't until I got to set, and there's like 150 people waiting for me, and I'm like, "What? What is this? I don't even know what this project is." And the makeup person, who was doing the dots on my face, was like, "They didn't." They didn't tell you at all. I'm like, no, I have no idea what this is. And he's like, this is the new Avengers movie. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I almost had an aneurysm. I was freaking out so much, but yeah, it was cool. Yeah, we just debuted the new variants on Sunday night's episode, and it was really cool to be able to introduce those. Zombie purists will tell you that the slow moving walkers are more terrifying, but for me, the idea of a fast moving walker who can pick up rocks and use weapons and also open doors, they're way more sentient now. So I think that's way more terrifying, and I'm excited to see where they go with that in the new series. Well, I think his biggest concern is making sure that Alexandria is safe and taken care of, while also, taking out Lance from the Commonwealth, because he's obviously not a good dude. And now that we've determined that, I think he's committed to making sure that Lance and the people who
Mm.
are supporting him pay for what he did. But also, he just wants to make sure that his daughter is safe. I think providing a safe community for his daughter is like the number one priority of his life. So that's where he's at. No, I once I got. It's funny. My buddy had been trying to get me to read Invincible years ago, like a decade ago. I just was too busy and I didn't have time to get around to it. But once I got the part, I read as much as I could, and I've gotten pretty close to finishing it. But we're actually uh, just in the middle of season 3 recording, and it's like I thought season 1 was messed up, but I actually think season 2 and 3 might be even more crazy. So for fans of Invincible, I'm excited for you guys to see it once it comes out. I think I'd like to play John McClane from Die Hard. I feel like that role was such a badass role. I thought it was so cool what Bruce Willis did with that role. So yeah, John McClane probably. Yeah, it's funny because I told the promoters that I actually did a report on Paraguay in like third grade when I was about 9 years old, and I remember that some it has like the largest freshwater reserve on the planet. It's underneath like the aquifers, I think, and you guys got the biggest navy of any landlocked country. I was like, wow, that's so neat. And I guess the rivers can take you guys to either side of South America, which I thought was really cool. So, yeah, that's kind of all I remember. And there's two native languages to Paraguay, right? It's not just Spanish. It's There it is. Yes, I knew it was like it was on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, those are the things that I remember from 30 years ago when I did that report. But I just remember it being so cool, and I thought one day I'll get to Paraguay. So now, 30 years later, I'm finally getting a chance to. I'm so excited. Well, I'd love to go see some of the rainforest there if I can. But even just some of the mountains up there, I understand Paraguay just has the most beautiful nature. So I'd really love to check that out. Es un poquito. 2 años en otra escuela y yo necesito más practicar con mis conjugación y más palabras, pero es muy limitada. Well, my teacher was from the same town as Antonio, so yeah, I think. Um, growing up, I was always a fan of Halloween because it was the one day of the year that I could be someone else entirely and just commit to being someone else. And I think as someone who grew up not really, you know, having a hard time fitting in and not really liking myself sometimes, like getting to play someone else was always a fun escape for me. Um, and I've just kind of expanded on that throughout the years. Like now it's just really fun to be a different person for a few weeks or a few months out of the year. And I love the challenge of that, you know? But the cool thing about voice of work is that you can literally be anybody. You know, if I walk into a room, they're going to look at how tall I am, my skin color, my gender, everything else. But if you are in the voiceover world, like you can kind of play anything and anyone. And I really like that, the freedom of voiceover. Elrond, or do you want Red Skull? What do you think?
To everyone in Paraguay, it is my curse to know all who travel there, and I am very excited to go to ComicCon Paraguay, November 26th to the 28th. I'll see you there. Auf Wiedersehen.
Nice to meet you too.